Alright, so 2 years after the Tim Story Fantastic Four movie, they finally make a sequel. They don't have to worry about a rights deadline, so hopefully that means they'll be able to get this one right and knock it out of the park. Oh, no. Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which came out in 2007, once again directed by Tim Story, and is the sequel to his first Fantastic Four movie from 2005. Once again, we follow the Fantastic Four: Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm. Reed and Sue are about to get married, and at this point the Fantastic Four have become celebrities. They cannot go anywhere without drawing attention to themselves. So Reed and Sue's wedding is this big extravaganza, but it's all ruined because the Silver Surfer arrives, who basically heralds Galactus, the Eater of Worlds. So the Fantastic Four have to stop him, stop Galactus, and reluctantly work with Victor Von Doom to try and stop this all from happening. So this movie came out in 2007. I've actually talked about the summer of 2007 several times on this channel when reviewing other movies, because that was the first summer when I really noticed, holy crap, there are a ton of movies coming out this summer. This is going to be jam-packed, from Spider-Man 3, Shrek the Third, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Ratatouille, Transformers, the Simpsons movie. So many movies that I was excited to see this year, and most of them have been mediocre at best. Like, the best ones, I think, are Ratatouille and Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. The worst ones were Shrek the Third. Transformers, I would have said, is one of the worst, but I have an admiration for some of the filmmaking, and it's at least a cool movie to watch. But the other worst one is this movie, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which the biggest problem with this film is that it didn't learn any of the mistakes that the first movie made. It's still very boring, very slapsticky, which I know the Fantastic Four is meant to be more lighthearted. It's a more upbeat and colorful comic, but this is not even good humor. Like, it's not character humor, it's slapstick. It is ridiculous, goofy slapstick, and there's nothing worse than a movie that's trying so hard to make you laugh and it just doesn't. Even the things that I enjoyed about the first Fantastic Four movie don't work in this one. Chris Evans is just straight up obnoxious this time around as Johnny Storm, and he gets some of the very worst moments in this film. Most notably, he's the one that's centered around all the shameless product placement that this movie has to offer. Early in the movie, Johnny comes up with an idea for their new suits, and he shows a prototype, and it's just plastered with all these corporations, and it's shameful. And then when we get the introduction to the Fantastic Car, we can see that the Dodge logo's on the front, and Johnny Storm says, "Hemi?" which is an engine that you find in a Dodge, and Reed goes, "Yep," and it's terrible, but at the very least, it's not as shameless as in Sex Tape, when the movie literally stops for Jason Segel to pick up an iPad and talk about how amazing it is. Like, wow, that was awful. But I'm not talking about Sex Tape. I already did a review for that when it came out. I'm talking about Rise of the Silver Surfer. As for Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm / The Thing, he does the best he can this time around, but something I didn't mention in the first movie is that the Thing is brought to life through basically a suit, which I admire them trying to bring the Thing to life with practical makeup work. But the suit in the last movie just looked like rubber. I didn't really get the feeling that he was supposed to be made out of rocks. And in this movie, he looks even more fake than he did in the first one. And this movie cost more. This movie had a bigger budget and some better production value, and yet the Thing looks even cheaper than it did in the first movie. Not to mention that Michael Chiklis has a hard time acting through all that heavy makeup. The characters are also unbelievably stupid, which these are supposed to be scientists. These are supposed to be pretty smart characters, and yet a lot of the time they're bumbling throughout this movie. There's a sequence in London where Johnny Storm is just this giant screw-up. However, the dumbest character in the movie is the military general who says, "Fantastic Four, I can't rely on you, so we're gonna bring in some reinforcements, Victor Von Doom." And I'm thinking, why? Why would you bring back the villain from the first movie? You saw what he did at the end. You saw how evil he became. Why would you trust this guy to try and stop an intergalactic threat when you know he's going to use it for his own personal gain? Like, y'all are just stupid. And when Doom eventually betrays the military and the Fantastic Four, you're like, no shit, of course that was gonna happen. Now, speaking of villains, I do want to talk about the villains in this film, because Doom is an afterthought. Despite being one of the most popular Marvel villains and the arch nemesis of the Fantastic Four, you could have cut Julian McMahon out of this movie as Doom. It wouldn't have made a difference at all. And Julian McMahon's performance is just as bad in this movie as it was in the first one. But as for the Silver Surfer, he's probably the best part of the movie because he looks cool, the visual effects used to bring him to life look really good, and Laurence Fishburne's voice just fits perfectly with this character. He comes across as a bit generic and there's really not much to him, but he gets some of the best scenes in the movie. The action scene where Johnny's chasing him through New York is really cool, and also it should be mentioned that Doug Jones plays the Silver Surfer, and Doug Jones has done a lot of work before and even after this movie. For example, he played the Gill-Man from Shape of Water from Guillermo del Toro. And when you look at Doug Jones, his physique actually fits perfectly for the Silver Surfer. So they clearly spent a lot of time trying to get the Silver Surfer right. Too bad they didn't give that same amount of attention to Galactus, who I'm not even going to go too much into this character because he's not even a character. Everyone's talked about Galactus in this film. He's nothing but a giant cloud. The Eater of Worlds, one of the biggest characters in the entire Marvel Universe, is just a giant cloud in space. I think that speaks for itself, and all I'll say is, thank God he's actually going to look the way he looks in First Steps, because, yeah, at this point, it still baffles my mind that they made Galactus a cloud, but I'm gonna move on. This movie, I don't have much else to say about it. This is a prime example of a movie that had more money than the last one, and yet somehow couldn't do better than the last one, because this is worse. This is worse than the first Fantastic Four movie, because the acting is still very questionable. Ioan Gruffudd is still bland as Reed Richards. Jessica Alba is terrible again as Sue Storm. And this time, Jessica Alba has so much makeup on her that she just doesn't look attractive. Like, she looked much better and much more beautiful in the first movie. And even The Love Brewer, which came out the next year, which is an even worse movie than this one right here. And they once again do the joke where, oh, all of her clothes are off, so she has to turn invisible. Like, it's just so shameless and very disrespectful to that character, and even Jessica Alba herself. I don't hate this movie, I'm not angry at it, so I'm not going to say burn in hell, but don't waste your money on it. Out of all the summer movies that came out in 2007, I think this was the worst one. Oh, you know what? Shrek the Third exists, so maybe that's the worst one, but Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer is definitely on the lower end of the summer of 2007. And there you go, that's my review for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I hope you enjoyed it. And one more thing I have to note before I end the review. This was the movie that made me not excited for Iron Man, because Iron Man was literally the next movie that came out when it came to Marvel films. And I was like, nope. I've seen Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I've heard how terrible Ghost Rider is. Spider-Man 3 has, I think, aged well over time, but it's not an amazing movie, not even great. So with all those, I am not excited for Iron Man. And plus, Robert Downey Jr., like, aren't we making fun of this guy? But then that movie came out and just blew everyone away, and that was the point right here where I became a fan of other superheroes, not just Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, or the Hulk. So I guess if it wasn't for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, I wouldn't have had very low expectations for Iron Man, just to be blown away by how good it ended up being. But back to Fantastic Four, this movie didn't make as much money as the first one, so there was never a third movie. There was a reboot that came out 8 years later, which can't be as bad as this, right? Right? Sorry, I had to do that meme because y'all know what's coming next. Next week is going to be my updated review for Fant4stic, the 2015 adaptation of Fantastic Four directed by Josh Trank, and what I think is one of the worst movies of the last decade. I doubt anything's changed since the 10 years this movie has been out, but I wanted to do an updated review for this film so I could kind of push aside the angry review that I gave when it first came out. So check back next week where I'll be re-reviewing Josh Trank's Fantastic Four. So until then, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I want to give a special thank you to my subscribers and YouTube members right over here. You guys are the reason why this channel continues to grow every day, and if you want to help to financially support the channel, you can do so via YouTube memberships for as little as $1.99 a month. But until next time, I want to know what you guys think about Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Whatever your opinions are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. If you want to find me elsewhere on the internet, you can find me on these social media platforms and my theme park and travel channel right here on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.